Good morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids, and welcome to Season 5 and episode number 688 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Always 100% Canadian. Today, recording day is Wednesday, July 9th, 2025. And as you can tell by the sun on my face coming through the window, it is a gorgeous sunny day here at the Beaver Lodge. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver, eh? And with me, as always, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. A big thank you goes to our podcast's founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. We have an interesting show for you today. Two big stories that have come out, one having to do with things that keep us awake at night, and the other also having to do with things that might keep certain people awake at night, but in a whole entirely different way. But before we get into it, Mr. Grizzly, how is your mental health today, sir?
All things being equal, I think I'm doing pretty good. A little tired. Went to bed at a decent hour last night, at about quarter to 11. Normally 11 o'clock is my bedtime. So, yeah, I went to bed at quarter to 11 and fell asleep pretty quickly. Woke up a couple of times, but feeling a little groggy this morning. I found that I had a serious sinus pressure headache last night from the weather change, so I had to take a Benadryl, which helped. But of course, that makes you a little groggy, and yeah, so I'm not fully awake this morning as a result. So I'll probably have 3 of these today.
The triple coffee day.
Yes, indeed.
Woke up in a great mood. Went to bed in a great mood as well. No dips yesterday. Ventured away from home again yesterday for a about the same distance as I did the other day when I took a walk and went downtown. Still, it's really weird, the place where I'm feeling pain in my foot when I do that. Yesterday, I did something different though, because last time I went still wearing the boot. Yesterday, I tried wearing just 2 shoes. Um, uh, it hurt in my ankle, but on the opposite side of my foot where I broke stuff,
Mm.
which was really, really weird. And it hurt a lot in that by the time I got downtown, I decided that I needed to stop and, take a rest and maybe eat something. And I sat and I rested for about an hour and a half before I can make my way back
That's a long
home.
rest. That's a long rest.
Yeah, my foot was
Oh,
hurting. Uh, I,
well,
yeah, about a quarter of the way there, I thought, "Oh, I should have probably worn the boot."
mm,
But you got to test things out, right?
yeah.
And see how things are going. So because my beaver sweetie is going to Romania
Oh,
in early August, and some of the stuff he wanted to do is a bit of mountain hiking and stuff, and wanted me to come with him. And we've been sort of like he's bought his ticket, but I've been delaying buying mine because I'm not quite sure whether or not I can do it. And I'm going to see the orthopedic surgeon again
Mhm.
on the 23rd to see, how things are going. And well, if we're leaving on the 1st, well, that leaves 9 days to buy a ticket then. I'm sure that the prices will be pretty high then.
It's tough to say.
Yeah,
You know,
unless you get a last minute deal or something.
yeah,
So
exactly.
it's it's kind of looking iffy
Mm,
about me able to go, and even just even if we weren't, even if I was going to go just 2 weeks rather than the full month like he's going, and just skip the hiking part, and just like do the in city type of stuff. Um, we do a lot of walking when we travel,
oh,
when
yeah.
we're exploring a city, and I'm not sure I've got 10K in me a day.
I was doing 10K a day in Yellowknife.
Yeah, I'm not sure I've got 10K a day in me in my foot.
Mm,
And I'm not, again, and I have to sort of look like, where do I think I will be about a month from now?
right.
Will I have it then? Uh, right now, I'm not feeling confident.
Mm,
Because I think it's only about like 2K there, right? What I did yesterday, and about like 1K, 1.25K in. It was like, yeah, not wearing the boot was a mistake. So, I'm not sure if that's enough time to build up that endurance. So I'm a little iffy. Is I want to go because there's going to be an opportunity to meet a whole bunch of his family that I have not met yet, because I've only been to Romania once, and that was like in our second year of our relationship. And it's like, well, we're closing in on 13. So, there's a whole bunch of people in Romania who've been hearing about me constantly for 13 years.
just haven't met him
Met
yet.
me.
Oh, it's time to go, man. Make the trip. Do it.
Yeah, well,
Make it happen.
but I mean, if all I'm going to do is just sit there,
Can't think like that. Maybe you
yeah,
can't do 10K a day, but you do what you can.
I know.
Besides, you get to visit people you've never met.
Yeah, I know.
Which means you're gonna put on weight because they're gonna feed you till you burst.
Probably, yes. Um, it seems that there are certain things about Quebec culture and Romanian culture that are very, very common.
Oh, yes. You'll be
And
eating constantly.
yeah, that's one thing. It's like a um, uh, short, stout women who cook very well and want you to eat a lot.
Mhm. Yeah, that's what it boils down to.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm still, like I said, I would wanna go, but, like I said, I'm hoping for, a lot of it's gonna depend on what they tell me on the 23rd, of course. Though, because if they tell me, yeah, the bone is healing, but yeah, you probably still got another 3 or 4 more weeks to go, that might make it, a little trickier then. But we'll see. We'll see. Oh, man. Yeah. Okay, kits and cubs. We're going to start off with something a little interesting before we get into the
Meat.
deeper, yeah, the meat of it. Um, as you know, we've been having issues in the nation with the prices of rent, with the prices of housing, because it's been going up. A lot of people have been blaming immigration, and there is a portion to it that has something to do with that, because there was for a time where we had, higher temporary student visas and that type of stuff, and there was increasing demand, and we've capped some of that. And for some reason, Pierre Poilievre is still going all around the media saying that we need tight immigration controls when we kind of already done that. I'm not sure how much tighter he wants them.
Well,
And
he might want to adopt, and I'm thinking he's probably gonna adopt the Project 2025 aspect where I don't know if you saw, is it Kristi Noem? I'm not sure if it's Kristi Noem, who says something to the effect of, "Well, we're gonna automate a lot of, things. We'll have machines that will do a lot of, crop picking,"
mhm.
which, okay, where are these machines coming from? Because they don't exist, number 1. Number 2, and then the folks that are on Medicaid, we'll just put them out into the fields and work for it.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Forced labor camps.
yeah. That's going to work just fine.
How do you automate picking berries? You don't.
No.
You don't. Then somebody said, "Well, you know what they do in the Netherlands is they grow them on sticks inside of greenhouses, and then a machine just clips them as for grapes." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, but you do realize all of that has to be replanted to do that. Number one, and number two, um, they don't have greenhouses that big in California and Texas and Idaho, and
Hmm. You're going to have to build all that.
These are not serious people.
I know.
These are stupid people.
I know.
Saying stupid things who are in positions of power.
If the answer is too simple, odds are the person giving you the answer is too.
Yes.
Right?
I know that in time, all farming will be automated. I know that in time. We know this.
Probably vertical too.
Yes, but it's not happening overnight.
No.
And people are going to starve to death in the meantime, and crops are going to rot in the field in the meantime, and farmers are going to lose their farms in the meantime.
Right. So, and there's like an irony in all of this because the other day I stumbled upon video of just 2 years ago when Danielle Smith was talking on a radio show about her Alberta project when she wanted to double the population of Alberta to 10 million from the 5 million that it is now. But now you have like Pierre going all around, especially around the end of the election with the Century Project thing. It's like, oh my God, they want to bring in so many people. And it's like, if you actually looked at the numbers with the Century Project, it was actually reducing immigration from what it was at the time he was complaining about it being this horrible thing. But we're going to need a certain amount of immigration, right? Even some of the provinces now are even talking, now about it's like, well, we still need people, but they're not willing to build the homes and they're not willing to increase the availability of healthcare, but they still want the bodies.
Yes, they want modern slavery is what they want.
And then when the bodies become too expensive to have here or place too much demands, well, then they blame it on the feds for having brought the bodies that they requested to be here.
Well, let me show you this video clip regarding exactly that. This is from July 4th, so just a few days ago. This is from Cole, at Cole.notcole. I don't know if you've seen this or not, but I think you'll love this. It's 2 minutes. It's well worth your time. Have a look at this.
Is the far right in Canada working with the Trump administration to try and manufacture an immigration crisis in Canada? Yesterday, right-wing politicians and influencers flocked online to say that Canada was letting in thousands of criminals under a process called criminal rehabilitation. They started making the claim that these 17,500 people who had been let into Canada over the last 11 years could be linked to terrorism.
Now, what they were convicted for, we don't know. But could those things include terrorism, war crimes, violence against women, murder, capital offenses? I don't know.
When the reality is most people who enter Canada under these rules have very minor offenses. The numbers are very likely to include lots of people coming here to vacation or to do business who have very minor charges from 10, 20, or 30 years ago. Things like DUIs, minor drug charges, misdemeanors, not terrorism. Pierre Poilievre made the claim that the Liberal government was letting Tehran-linked terrorists in the country and then said, deport them now. The article he was referring to was a Toronto Sun article which cited its source as Council for a Secure Canada. The article referred to them as a terrorism watchdog when in reality they are a nonprofit that is registered as a lobbyist group. They advocate for things like the Abraham Accords, which Donald Trump signed in 2020. The Abraham Accords don't recognize Palestine in any way and help expand settlements into the West Bank. The CEO for Secure Canada is Cheryl Sapria, a Jewish woman who also happens to be a part of the Canada Strong and Free network.
Oh my God.
In an ex-post, she said that the Canadian government recognizing a Palestinian state means the government has no moral or security sensibilities. Months ago, Trump first tried to put tariffs on Canada because he claimed that large amounts of fentanyl were coming over the northern border. But just a couple weeks ago, Kristi Noem said that lots of South American gangs are now flocking to Canada.
We saw now, since we have secured the southern border, the TDA, the MS-13, the cartels bringing their drugs and coming across this northern border as well.
She also claims that Canada isn't giving the United States access to all our databases where we store information on the people who have immigrated into Canada. Is this all foreshadowing Trump trying to put further tariffs on Canada, or is he trying to get involved in our immigration? Is he trying to get involved in detention and deportations in Canada? And are the Conservatives trying to help him?
Wow, that 17,000 people. That was the story I was talking about yesterday.
Yes.
Specifically.
That's why I wanted to show it, because I just got the clip, and I meant to show it to you yesterday, but we went off on a tangent. But that is the Conservative Party working with the Trump administration? Certainly looks like it.
Yeah.
Certainly looks like it.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, maybe they aren't, but wow, you'd have a hard time convincing me they aren't.
Oh, absolutely. So, okay, So we're looking at this. It's interesting to get the background on the organization that's pushing this too. Interestingly enough, so while Pierre is, preaching the language of greater immigration controls, even though we've already done that, but it seems he wants further ones. When it comes to being able to afford a place to live, it seems that those measures that were taken by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, may I remind everyone, um, seem to be having an impact when it comes to rents and the impact that was desired. Mr. Grizzly, I believe we have a story from CBC there, if you would show it.
Happy to share this.
This is by the CMHC, so they're behind a lot of the construction and the financing on behalf of the federal government. So they've been making purpose-built buildings specifically to rent. And so this is why we're looking at this sort of mid-year report. We're starting to see a supply, an oversupply, if you will. They're expecting to see vacancy rates rising. So as a result of the first quarter of this year, we're starting to see prices coming to the downside. Take a look at this according to the CMHC as far as what we're seeing on Canada's some of their largest cities that we've got. There's a decline anywhere between 2 and 8% in purpose-built rental apartments in the first quarter of the year. For example, Vancouver, the advertised asking price for rents is down about 4.9%. We've got Calgary down about 3.5%, Toronto down 3.7%, and Halifax down 4.2%. Now, Ottawa, Edmonton, Montreal are all up a little bit over this year, and there's also another category as well that they keep track of, and that's two-bedroom condominium rental prices. That sort of follows a similar trend here. But the reason that CMHC is looking at purpose-built rental apartments is they are gauging, how much more they want to finance these, how much more supply is coming online. And for example, they point out to one report as to why that we're seeing rising vacancy rates and lower rents, saying that it's a sluggish job market for one, and also a declining migration as far as not enough demand and more supply, quite frankly, coming onto the line. And CMHC was behind almost 90% of all the construction going on for the purpose-built rental. So they're also saying that this is creating an environment, a difficult environment for landlords and property managers. And clearly, the message between that is becoming more of a renter's market. So if anyone's shopping around out there, they should experience better prices over this time last year for the first quarter anyways.
The CBC's Scott Peterson in Toronto. Stay with us. We're back in a moment.
So there you go. Prices of rent are decreasing in certain markets. In certain markets, they are not, of course. And he mentioned Montreal. And there's been some parallel news stories with regard to that, because it would appear that in Montreal, in the province of Quebec, specifically, but in in the province of Quebec generally, but in Montreal very specifically, that there is indeed an issue with the price of rent, even though there are rent controls in the province of Quebec. A recent report shows that was released in June shows that rents in the province have jumped greater than 70% since 2019, and that's despite the rent control laws. In Quebec, there's a rule that says that somebody coming into a new apartment is supposed to know what the previous tenant was paying when they signed the lease, but that info is hard to find, and the inspection mechanism is so lax that it's kind of hard to get any follow-up. There are laws that increase the penalties on landlords who make false declarations on leases, but then again, how do you pursue that?
That's the problem.
Yeah. There is a pilot registry website, but it is volunteer in that renters themselves enter into it, how much it is that they pay, not the landlords. So, I mean, if you don't do it or don't know about it, it's not there. And, you have to pretty much know about it before signing. People and lobby groups have tried to encourage the government of Quebec to actually create a public registry for rents, but the government has responded that that would be too expensive, so doesn't want to do it. In the city of Toronto, also, if we're looking there, there's been a recent street assessment that has found that 15,418 people are thought to be homeless, which is a 77% increase between 2018 and 2024. That number was 8,715 in 2018. The street assessment in Toronto is a review that's done by the city every few years, which reviews the scope of homelessness across shelters and encampments, hotel programs, respite programs, healthcare and correctional facilities. But the number is not very complete because it doesn't include good numbers for encampments that happen to be in more remote locations, or what is called the hidden homeless people, or couch surfing, or temporarily living in somebody else's place. Rent free, or in exchange for housework or something like that. Right, so not those numbers are there. So lack of housing is a big reason overall, because Doug Ford is not getting the homes built. But many who are in this situation that find themselves homeless are saying that eviction is the main reason for their situation. So while we're getting data at the same time that indicates, that the number of people who are homeless in Toronto has increased, and that rents are increasing in Quebec and all that kind of stuff. Overall, however, it seems that the caps are working their way through the economy, and they are resulting in some reductions in the costs of rent. And I believe in previous months there had been a little bit of cooling off of the price of houses, but there's also been some cooling off in the number of houses on the market as well. People are less likely to be wanting to sell their house and move in this particular period than they were not too long ago.
Well, there's an issue happening right now here in the city of Ottawa you might not be familiar with if you don't live here, but I am going to share it with you. Currently, what's taking place is our current city council has adopted a mentality of charging people if you have a dwelling and it's vacant. Okay. All right, fine, fair enough. Except they're punching down. They're doing it on people who have, say, if you own a fourplex, right? So you have an apartment building. It has 4 apartments in it. You reside in one. 2 are rented and 1 isn't. If the 1 isn't rented, they're going to charge you with a huge fine for that. Except they're only going after the low-hanging fruit, the little guy. They're punching down on people. Big corporations that own apartment towers and apartment complexes, nobody pursues them. Do you know why?
Why?
Well, it's kind of simple. You see, a little person, a small business owner who owns a small building of 4 apartments and lives in one, does not have the financial wherewithal to fight City Hall. But a big corporation who owns, I don't know, 40 or 50% of the rental properties in Ottawa in multi-dwelling units or MDUs, apartment buildings, apartment complexes, sprawling garden homes. Well, they have millions upon millions, and in some cases, billions of dollars in blood-sucking lawyers in some cases. And I'm not taking away from the lawyers. They're doing their job. They're doing it very well. I call them bloodsuckers because they win. They don't lose. And it's not an insult. It's meant as a compliment, believe me. Because if you need a lawyer on your side, you want a bloodsucker, right?
Right.
You get where I'm going?
Yeah, I get you.
But what happens is, because these big corps have these big law firms that represent them, the city does not pursue them for the vacancies. I know this because there's right on the other side of that wall, like just if I point right there, that's been vacant for a year.
Yeah.
A year. Why is nobody pursuing the corporation that owns this building? I mean, like, why not? Like, whereas a buddy of mine who owns a fourplex and he has had a vacancy for a while because he's not been able to find somebody to get in there to rent, they're trying to charge him. He's like, no, that's my office. He literally turned it into his office to avoid having to pay a $25,000 fine. And he just did $40,000 in renos because he had a cracked pipe that was leaking, and his insurance company isn't going to pay for it. So it's out of his pocket. $40K. And now the city wants to charge him $25,000 because the unit's vacant because he hasn't been able to find somebody in there. But a big corporation that has had a vacancy for a year, nobody will talk to them. They will never get pulled in front of city council. So there's a lot at play here.
Yep. Yep.
How
And
do I
these,
know they aren't being pursued? Is a good question here from Mr. Jim. Well, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they are, but the vast majority of the people going to court over this are small landlords, small business owners who own 3 or 4 fourplexes or something to that effect. None of the big corps are being heard in current trial. Now, maybe they have been charged. I don't know, but I've yet to see anything.
hmm yeah, this is a dynamic that you explained that's similar also to tax evasion,
Yes.
where they will go after the small business owner or the independent business owner or just the average citizen rather than the large corporation
Mm.
or accounting firms or whatnot for the same reason, because they're very well lawyered up, and the amount of the amount of effort that they have to put in to get
Right.
the amount back, they just turn around and say, "Okay, that's too much," or "It's too hard." And so, yes,
Well,
the people that are least able or least willing to defend themselves are the first targets, the low hanging fruit.
and $25,000 for a big corpus chump change. Maybe they just paid it. In many cases, as we've talked about before,
Yep,
to
it's
a
a
big
it's
cost
a
of doing
cost of doing
business.
business. Yep.
Yeah, literally. That's why when you look to the Scandinavian countries, in Finland specifically, your speeding tickets are geared to your income. So you could get a speeding ticket for $300,000 or $400,000 because you're a multimillionaire. The only way you are ever going to dissuade the wealthy from punching down on the marginalized is to hit them where it hurts. Have a sliding scale. Why is it a single mother who works 3 jobs to keep food on a table and a roof over the heads of their children gets a $300 parking fine that she can't afford to pay? But a guy who's worth millions, that's just convenience fee as far as he's concerned.
Exactly. So yeah, I saw the comment in the chat. There wasn't July 1st moving day in Quebec. Yeah, it was. And after moving day was over, there's about 350 Montrealers and about 2,000 people throughout the province of Quebec who are still looking for a place. So that was sort of the impetus to sort of bring this story about.
Mhm.
Now we're talking, and Mr. Grizzly, you showed that clip of Ben Mulroney on a show, which again, right? The thing that I was talking about yesterday, you can see that this is performative, right? Because he's sitting there, it's like this. What kind of charges are these? I don't know. And then just rushes like this. They could be terrorism. They could be like this. And again, which was my point yesterday. Or yes, or you could just calm down and try not to bypass the logical center and go strictly to the most inflammatory and worst case scenario possible. And actually remember that in a democratic country, we do have something called triage, and we do have people who think and systems and procedures and whatnot, and are able to tell the difference between somebody who has a DUI X number of years in the past and a terrorist charge, and maybe apply a little bit of judgment. Say, you know what? Maybe the person with the terrorist charge is not the first person that we're going to apply this program to. Right? But that's clearly not what Ben is in this for these days. Clearly. And those who rush to listen to him are probably not there for that reason either.
Yeah,
If
exactly.
they are there, they are probably, I would say, harboring certain sentiment to begin with that may not be too friendly or welcoming towards immigrants, and it causing
Yeah.
them to want their outrage button pushed and wanting their biases confirmed. On that front, kits and cubs, there's been 2 disturbing pieces of news with regard to the military in the press lately. The first one that came out uh, before the big news yesterday was that the Army was investigating members who were allegedly involved in, as the CBC describes it, an abhorrent Facebook group, according to Canada's top soldier. And this is according to Catherine Tunney of CBC here. The Canadian Army is investigating members who allegedly shared what the country's top soldier called, quote, abhorrent content within a private Facebook group. According to a statement from Lieutenant General Mike Wright, the, quote, Blue Hackle Mafia group featured, quote, racist, misogynistic, homophobic, and anti-Semitic comments and images, because, of course, right, those four things all go together when it comes to this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
In the message to Armed Forces members shared with the CBC News, the Army commander wrote that he is, quote, disgusted by the content of some of the posts published on this group. Wright called the group's content abhorrent and warned of consequences. Quote, I have ordered that any serving Canadian Army members currently on the social media group immediately cease their participation. Wright said the contents were reported up the chain of command, quote, as recently as December, and that he was made aware of the alleged misconduct on June 25th. A message from the Office of the Canadian Forces Provost Marshal, also shared with CBC News, said complaints about the private Facebook group were first investigated by the military police in Ottawa and were later transferred to the unit to conduct a disciplinary investigation. Those investigations are meant to determine if there are sufficient grounds to believe a serious offense may have been committed. Quote, the transfer to the unit for disciplinary investigation was considered the best use of options available in the military justice system in this case, said the settlement. The Provost Marshal's office said the military police reopened their investigation on June 27th. Quote, this new investigation is ongoing and no further information will be provided at this time to protect the integrity of the investigation. Not much else is known about the Blue Hackle Mafia group, including how many Canadian Armed Forces members allegedly participated. Hackle could be a reference to the plume some infantry regiments wear. The Canadian Armed Forces has been under pressure to better handle members drawn to hateful views and extremism. A 2022 report from the military's advisory panel on systemic racism and discrimination found the number of Canadian Armed Forces members belonging to extremist groups is on the rise. The panel also found that the Department of National Defense had struggled to sniff out extremists in its ranks. Quote, the detection of extremist pockets or individuals is still very much siloed and inefficient, the panel wrote. In 2021, the National Security and Intelligence Review Agency, one of the country's independent watchdogs, issued a report warning white nationalism is a, quote, active threat to the Canadian Armed Forces and stressed that more resources are needed to effectively address the issue. Quote, white supremacist groups actively seek individuals with prior military training and experience, or conversely, encourage individuals to enlist in order to gain access to specialized training tactics and equipment, said the report. A 2020 CBC News investigation on a Canadian Ranger unit uncovered how Eric Migland, a British Columbia reservist who openly supported two far-right groups, was allowed to continue serving even after he had been identified by military counterintelligence and interviewed as a potential threat. In 2021, a U.S. judge sentenced former Manitoba Army reservist Patrick Matthews to 9 years in prison for charges related to what the FBI described as a neo-Nazi plot to instigate a race war in the United States. So we have news of this group that exists, and a lot of things in the story are things that we know, right? We saw it when the January 6ers and all the people that were arrested, some of them did have some military experience or law enforcement experience. There's other people that were sent to camps. A lot of people, some of the people that went and got that experience were then running these types of training camps for these types of groups and all that kind of stuff. There seems to be an affinity between these movements, and as was mentioned as well, concerted strategy from members of these groups to send people into these services, basically weaponizing the public service or the military against itself, right? By going to get the training and then leaving at some point and using that training for purposes that the military certainly would not approve of, particularly on domestic soil.
Well, we have a video clip here from the CBC, direct regards to this report. I'll show in a second here.
Yes. So yesterday, we had another report that came out that there were charges laid by the RCMP against military members who allegedly plotted to form a militia and seize land. And this is in Quebec. 4 men, including 2 active members of the Canadian Armed Forces, were charged with being part of an extremist plot that allegedly involved creating any anti-government creating an anti-government militia with a massive trove of weapons. In a news release Tuesday morning, the Mounties said the group was involved in an alleged ideologically motivated violent plot intending to forcibly take possession of land in the Quebec City area. 3 of them are between the ages of 24 and 25.
So young.
So young, I know. They've been charged with a serious offense of facilitating a terrorist activity. They also face weapon possession charges. The 3 accused were planning to create anti-government militia. To achieve this, they took part in military-style training as well as shooting, ambush, survival, and navigation exercises, the RCMP said. A 4th individual, who's 33, faces charges including possession of firearms, prohibited devices and explosives, and possession of controlled items. He also faces charges related to the Explosives Act and Defense Production Act, which regulates access to military supplies. The men appeared in court virtually on Tuesday and remain in custody. Their next court date is July 14th. Now, before we give you more information on this, we do have a section of an interview with Staff Sergeant Camille Habel, who
that's not the right link. I tried. It keeps coming up as the rental one, so it's the wrong link.
Oh,
yeah.
Really? Okay.
It was the previous.
Yes, I see that.
The previous story. Rents are falling in Calgary, Toronto, Vancouver, and Halifax.
Yes. I see that the thing has repeated itself, so I'll just find it. It won't be hard.
No problem.
But this staff sergeant is, the staff sergeant is basically making some interesting points here that I want you to hear because I'm including it to you here in the private chat there, Mr. Grizzly, the link. Obviously there's a lot that she can't say that's specifically about the particular case. But she is able to give information about some overarching trends, let's put it that way, with regard to this type of action, who it attracts, and that it's not specifically a military thing here. So we have 3 clips from her, and this is particularly the first one with a little bit of details of what was going on that I've probably just given you, and some initial questions. And near the end of it, she gets into this particular section, some stuff that's particularly interesting here.
We do want to stay on this story. For that, we'll bring in our CMP Staff Sergeant Camille Habel. Sergeant Habel, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
First, I wanted to ask you what initially tipped off the RCMP to this alleged plot?
It's information that we got at the National Security Team.
Specifically, was that information? Was somebody looking at this social media page, or was there information from somebody who might have been involved, an anonymous tip?
I can't really get into how we got the information or who gave it to us, because otherwise people would never share information with us again. But it's very normal, and it happens quite often that national security investigations will start with information either coming from a partnering agency, from an international partner, or from someone from the public.
And can you clarify, too, how long the 3 of the 4 accused individuals had been allegedly engaged in military-style training, which is part of the details that we got from that release?
Well, our investigation started in 2023 in the spring, and then what we were able to discover was that some activities started in 2021.
And what more do we know about when and how these individuals were actually planning to execute their plan to seize land in the Quebec City area? How were they intending to do that?
What I can tell you is that in that ideology in general, quite often we would see a desire to create a new society, a desire to live by different values, and wanting to change or create some kind of chaos so that they could take over society to create it and live it the way that they want.
Is there any indication that there could be more individuals involved here?
Well, we know that because of the Instagram account, that there are more people interested in that ideology. We know that that ideology is an issue in Canada right now, and it's something that we worry about and that we look into. So it's not a case that will fix the problem. It is really a societal problem. And what makes that ideology very complex is that it's not a one belief ideology. So when people are frustrated about something, they add their own frustrations and grievances to the ideology. They take a little bit of what they want from anything. So in this case, we're talking anti-authority, anti-government, but quite often it's mixed with, could be misogyny, racism, and then that becomes the ideology, and then proving and showing that ideology becomes very different because it's individualized.
All right, Mr. Grizzly. So that's the part near the end, what she was talking about. That's particularly concerning because usually when you have these types of movements, there's one common core ideology and everybody's following it. But now that we're in the age of the internet and everything's on demand and everything is tailor-made and everything is siloed, right? You have your own specific playlist when you're on your iTunes. You have your own specific, on YouTube. You can have your own watch list. You can access all the news that you want, but all the news that you want and all the different perspectives are there, but you can access only news all the time that only confirms what you already believe or tells you what you want, right? Everything is self-selection.
Yeah, it's
So
about confirmation echo chamber. It's a problem when you only read. How many folks have you met? I don't watch the CBC or CTV.
Right.
I just read Fox News and Rebel News.
Yeah.
Okay. You're entitled to do that. It's a free country. You can, except Rebel is not news.
It's not a healthy diet.
They've gone to court to say as such, as has Fox News about many of the programs on their show, many of the shows on their station channel.
It's like okay, you have a lot of red meat in your information diet. How about a carrot?
Yeah,
somewhere in there, or a potato. Right? Maybe you would like some rice. So you have to consume from different editorial perspectives and different types and different media, and target it to different audiences to get a good picture. But what this is happening here is that you can find a core ideology. For example, I'm anti-government or I'm anti-authority, and then you go in and you find a network that validates you in that. And then whatever grievance you have, your neighbor pissed you off somewhere like this. You have a neighbor who's a single parent with 4 kids. You turn around, oh, well, that welfare person, they shouldn't be reproducing, like this. And you take that, you throw that into the mix, and then you mix it with that. And now you've got to choose your own adventure. Basically, when I had that incident with my neighbor 2 doors down, or maybe 4 doors down last year, when he called me a fag as I was walking down the street, what made it so that I didn't go to the internet? And this would be from a far left perspective rather than a far right perspective, go in and say, oh, okay, all those damn breeders, they're the same, like us, and go and then get, violent and what. So you can basically take anything that happened. You got fired from your job, somebody cut you off and they're a different race. You can take whatever all that is, that anger, that rage, go there, put some of yourself in there. You're a content creator yourself. So you type that out and you put it out and you attract people that feel the same way, or people that are just involved with that movement who don't feel that way about it at all, but want to push your buttons and encourage you because, hey, they've got one more into the fight. There's this huge, great rewiring of the brain going on. Now, I know that when people are talking about the great rewiring, they're usually talking about, usually younger kids and what's happening growing up with tech and all that kind of stuff, and less play outside and what that, all that stuff is. But if we're looking at it in terms of this anti-authority, anti-government, anti-whatever movement, it's mostly men under 50, particularly men under 30, that are, and you add all of it together, the whole manosphere, you put it all together, and they seem to be sending messages to our young men over and over and over again that they're not valued, that they have no worth, that women have too much and they don't have enough, that they can't fulfill the roles of being good providers or all those alphas because it's these women and these gays and these trans people and all this DEI and whatnot that is all holding them down. It feeds this, right? And if those critical thinking skills are not there, if the awareness of Cambridge Analytics is not there, if the concept, if you are lonely and broken and looking for a sense of belonging and attachment, and you don't want to be rejected because you have these views, and the regular fair-minded people to whom you're talking to them about them says like, stop being a racist, and then you go somewhere and you find something that confirms that, and then you bring your own problem and somebody validates you in that problem and says, yeah, that's exactly. They come into your house, they're with you 24/7.
Yeah.
Right? This starts to get rewired
Oh, yes.
after a while. And there's an active campaign. Yes, and it's targeting, in particular, men under 30.
And usually men under 25 in many cases, simply due to the fact that they're easily manipulated because your frontal lobes aren't fully formed yet. You'll notice your outlook on planet Earth, the world, people in general, changes after the age of about 25. As you get slowly approach 30, your outlook changes about a lot of things, simply due to the fact that your brain is fully developed at that point. I see things differently now than I did when I was 25.
Oh God, yes.
I'm sure most people do. Some people never grow.
Right.
Granted, those people do exist. It's like stamped on their brain. That is who they will always be, no matter what, and it's never going to change. But the vast majority of the populace grows because more information is available. Now, again, if you get all your information from the same single source, that's not good.
I mean, I think of it as like there are things that I really believed when I was 25, or not so I really believed that things that were really important to me.
Yeah.
If I like being right and have you say that I was right and have like that I just don't care about anymore.
Yeah,
It's
don't
like
give it now.
I know when I'm right because I've adopted a policy of trying not to open my mouth when I'm not sure
Well,
about
and
things
when you
because I
make
don't
the
like being wrong.
mistake, when you make the mistake and you realize the information you had was incorrect and you were wrong, you're mature enough to go, hey, you know what? I was wrong. I apologize. I made a mistake. The information I had at the time, what was available to me, was, it turns out, incorrect. So I've since adjusted because I've grown as a human being and I've discovered there's more information that contradicts everything I just said. So I apologize. I was wrong.
Yeah.
That's
And
growth.
yes, and other things like realizing that you make the best decision you can with the information you have at the time. So there are things that I've done in my early 20s that now that I'm in my 50s, let's say that when I was in my 30s or so, I look back and say, oh my God, that was so dumb. Why did you do that? That now I'm in my 50s goes, no, I wasn't dumb.
I just didn't know better.
I just didn't know better like this. And any reasonable, rational person like this with that limited amount of information in that context at that time probably would have made a similar decision.
Mhm.
It's like, I'm not, right? It's, you place things, but when you are, and I believe like even like Guy Fawkes and like this, they'll talk about that. It's like I was 25 and I was angry and I wanted things fast and I wanted to like
Yes.
this, and it's like, and now that I'm like older, it's like, yeah, I know it's not about that anymore,
Yeah.
right? But th- there's an urgency of now, often when you're young,
Oh, yes.
that you don't have when you're older.
Everything is immediate. You need to have it right now.
Right?
Can't live without it. Have to have it.
Yeah.
Changes as you get older. You learn patience, which is a virtue, as they say, but you learn patience. You become more understanding. You become more open-minded, hopefully. Hopefully you become more open-minded. There's no guarantee that you will.
Yeah.
But as time moves on, you tend to, most people, the vast majority, grow.
Yeah.
Some never do. We've clearly observed that.
Mm. Yes. And hopefully, if life has smiled on you somewhat, you get to a point in life where you stop comparing yourself to the Joneses because, again, as Sinead O'Connor says, if you don't have it, it's probably because you don't want it.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, let the neighbor have the perfectly manicured lawn and the brand new car and all the toys and whatnot. You're not interested in that because you like to travel or you like to play golf or you've decided to put your money elsewhere because, or you'd like to have a really comfy, cozy home. So you renovated your kitchen. Like a source of, but whatever it is that makes you happy, that's what you've spent your time and your money. You realize that your priorities are the things on which you spend your time and your money, your real ones, right? And uh, you get more, hopefully, you get a little more comfortable with live and let live,
Well, one would
right?
hope.
Right? And all that kind of stuff. So it's not an accident and it's not a coincidence that young men specifically are being targeted,
No, it's intentional.
right?
It's intentional.
So we need to be doing more. Yes, to have guardrails and to uh, there's a word in French, encercler, but I don't mean like surround and circle as in terms of capture, but make sure that people have good support networks.
Well,
And people that they can talk to about mental health and all that kind of stuff, right? And that they can check in with, that can give them a different story or a different perspective
I'll give
on
you,
life.
for instance, of manipulation of a young person. So the guy who filmed and tried to make fun of me during the convoy,
Right.
the occupation of Ottawa, young man. I had a conversation with somebody who knew him since high school. Said, "This is not the guy I went to high school with. This
Right.
is not the guy who I started poli-sci with."
Right.
Somewhere along the way, his brain was hijacked by hateful people who poured poison into his brain, and now he's this full-on Nazi. He wasn't like that. He didn't grow up that way. He became that by people slowly chipping away. And you have to understand something too. Remember this, folks. Nazi Germany, during the height of the Holocaust, it didn't begin with gas chambers. They worked their way up to it, little by little by little by little. And we're seeing this happen in the United States right now with the Gestapo. I mean, ICE, who are just randomly pulling people off the streets and sending them off to foreign nations where they can't extradite them and bring them home. This is happening right now in real time. If you want to know what your reaction would have been during Nazi Germany and World
Whoops. I think Mr. Grizzly has frozen on us here, but I think he was about to say World War II and then continue on. Hopefully, we'll have him back with us relatively shortly. So going back to the article before we see the second clip from Staff Sergeant Camille Labelle, a message from the Office of the Canadian Forces Provost Marshal, also shared with CBC News, said complaints about the private Facebook group were first investigated. Whoops, sorry. That's the wrong story. Sorry here. I went back to the one I was reading before. The Office of the Canadian Forces Provost Marshal said in a statement Tuesday evening that two of the men are serving members, both corporals based at Canadian Forces Base Valcartier. Without providing names, it said one of the four accused was also a former armed forces member and the other a former civilian instructor with the Royal Canadian Air Cadets. A colleague of one of them confirmed that he was serving last summer in the Vandus, also known as the Royal 22nd Regiment. CBC News has agreed to withhold the identity of his colleague because he was not authorized to speak publicly on Canadian Armed Forces matters. The colleague expressed concern about comments that one of the charged had made about the federal government and then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, describing those comments as almost treasonous. And I just had an update there from Mr. Grizzly. His computer crashed hard. So he's probably going to have to do, Is he
In
back?
Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, I don't
think
know what happened. It just screens went black. Everything shut down.
it happens.
Yeah.
A Facebook account belonging to another one of the accused is filled with photos of him in military-inspired gear, posing with firearms, and posting against Bill C-21, the Liberals' gun control legislation. It also shows he was once a member of the cadet program. An RCMP spokesperson said the investigation began in the spring of 2023 and determined the alleged activity began in 2021. The National Police Force also alleges that one of the accused was running an Instagram account to which the staff sergeant referred in a previous comment, aimed at recruiting members. The RCMP said searches in the Quebec City area in January 2024 led to a seizure of 16 explosive devices, 83 firearms and accessories, and approximately 11,000 rounds of ammunition of various calibers, nearly 130 magazines, and 4 pairs of night vision goggles. Police said some of the firearms were prohibited and the stockpile included, quote, seized military equipment. Quote, violent extremism remains a serious concern within Canadian and international society, the statement from the Provost Marshal's office said. CAF members are prohibited from participating in an activity or being a member of a group or organization that relates to hate-related criminal activities and or promotes hatred, violence, discrimination, or harassment. The Provost Marshal's office said military police, along with the Canadian Armed Forces, assisted in the investigation. Jessica Davis, president of Inside Threat Intelligence and a former analyst with the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, said the seizure is the largest cache of weapons and components in any terrorism incident in Canadian history. So this is big. Quote, the amount of weapons and the amount of ammunition and the improvised explosive devices tells me that they were building up for something pretty significant, she said. They were either trying to recruit many more people, so they were going to need that level of weapons and ammunition, or they were preparing for some kind of siege. She also says it's the first time in her recollection that active force members have been involved with terrorism charges. Mr. Grizzly, do you have the second clip for the staff sergeant ready to go?
I will in a second. I'm just trying to get everything fixed up here.
No worries. I can bring it up myself here while we're waiting.
I have it.
You have it? Okay.
Yeah, just give me a sec. I got to.
Okay. Then I'll continue with the article. You can let me know when you have it.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. So the article then goes on to say that the Canadian Armed Forces have been under pressure to better handle soldiers drawn to hateful views and extremism. A 2022 report from the military's advisory panel on systemic racism and discrimination found the number of members belonging to extremist groups was on the rise, as we reported with the previous article. Barbara Perry, director of the Center on Hate, Bias, and Extremism, has been researching the rise of extremism within the Canadian Armed Forces. Quote, to be frank, I might have expected something like this even sooner given what we've been seeing, she said. While the motivation of the 4 men remains unclear, Perry said researchers have grown increasingly concerned about what she calls, quote, an unholy trinity in right-wing circles. Quote, you have an increasing obsession with weapons and guns, she said, combined with, quote, explicit attempts to recruit people with military experience. And you add on to that the hateful ideologies that are informing them, whether it's, anti-immigrant sentiment or Islamophobia or anti-statism, Perry said. That's a very dangerous combination. All right. Yeah, ready to go, Mr. Grizzly?
I am indeed.
All right.
That there have been concerns about extremism within the Canadian Armed Forces. There's a 2022 report pointing to an increase in members being involved in extremist groups or being connected with. Is there any anticipation that there could be more charges laid here?
Not in this case, but it's something, of course, that we are looking into. When we talk about anti-authority or anti-government issues, quite often it just happens that there's a profile of people that have a set of knowledge and skills that could help in putting something like that together. We can think of police officers also, or it could be a doctor if that's needed in that new society. So it's a possibility. It's everywhere. Like I mentioned, it's really a society issue. It's not something that's happening only in the armed forces. Being anti-authority in general is really something that we're seeing even in youth that have nothing to do with the army, but are not happy with what's happening around them.
All right. So again, supporting what's there in the article, but giving some insight. And Mr. Grizzly, I think we can jump to her last statement as well
Okay.
on this.
I'll bring it right up. Here we go.
And when you're finally, I wanted to ask, when you're talking about seeing individuals engage in that anti-authority and perhaps escalating their beliefs or their motives in that level, I'm wondering what the public can do in order to be vigilant, or what they can do to help in trying to ensure that there is safety and security on that front.
Well, radicalization in general quite often will show by people isolating themselves and changing their behavior, like changing what they're saying on a subject, like becoming more extremist. Like, and if someone you know was very believed in equal gender rights, but all of a sudden are leaning towards like traditional values, and that might be a sign that they're becoming more extremist. But we also have to remember that having the most extremist views is perfectly legal in Canada, and that it's only acting with violence to prove that view that becomes a criminal offense.
Well, thank you so much for offering some clarity here. We appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
So again here, again, some tips and, confirming a little bit what Mr. Grizzly was saying earlier about people that sort of have a certain view, and then, you talk to them sometime later and it's like, whoa, okay, that was a wholesale change of views there in X number period of time. It's just like, who are you? I don't recognize you anymore. Again, making the point that this is not just a military phenomenon that you'll see in police forces.
yes.
You can see it in the medical community. You can see it in a whole bunch of other places as well. And of course, making the point as well that when it comes to the law, because a lot of people say, well, why don't they just, they see the posts and, why don't they just kick them out? It's like, because you are allowed to have these views.
Yes.
You're allowed to express these views so long as you're not inciting violence or hatred. Now, a lot of people will say that simply expressing such views adds absolutely nothing of worth or value to society and can't help but incite. But unless there's like an active call to, that's not illegal.
The thing is, though, if you express those views in uniform,
Yes.
that's different, because
Yes.
now you represent the Canadian Armed Forces.
Exactly.
You do that in uniform, you're bounced. You're out.
Exactly.
You might be spending some time in Edmonton, and for those who know,
I don't know, so please tell me.
military prison.
Ah, okay.
And in a military prison, you do hard time.
Yeah.
I know people who've spent time in military prison for infractions they made when they were young and dumb and full of energy. And they learned and grew and deeply regret what they did at the time. And they said, I was a young man who was, fired up and wound up, and I did stupid shit. And that's what you do when you're a young man. That's what you do when you're a young man. And young women to a much, much, much lesser degree. Young women do stupid shit all the time too. All you have to do is go online and you'll see it. I think most of the stupid shit that young men do is I'm going to try this. This shouldn't hurt, right? And then they end up with a broken femur or something. You've seen those videos.
Yeah.
Right?
What happens if I light my own fart?
Yeah. Women are a little bit smarter about that, but I mean, they do it. Women do it too. Nobody's innocent in doing stupid shit when you're young. That's the point of being young, being able to do stupid things to figure out, maybe I shouldn't have done that.
Yes. And there used to be a time when you were doing the stupid shit and wasn't caught on video for everyone to see, so you could live it down.
Yeah. So now you do something stupid and the whole world has seen it in 4K in full surround sound. So yes.
Indeed. So yes, disturbing news, but and normally we don't bring you the terrorism kind of stuff and sort of the criminality sort of news, but I really liked the way that the staff sergeant was putting a lot of things in context there, and getting us to look broader and getting us to look at the global sort of overall ideology that is behind it, not just the sensationalism of this one event. And that's why I brought the news to you, because it's actually relatively rare that you get that type of quality of commentary directly from inside. But there you go. It happened on that day, so we brought it to you because we like it when smart people say smart things. We like to share that. So that's the terror part. Now we get to the other kind of terror part of our show with regard to tariffs. IQ 47 once again unhinged his jaw and decided to spout stuff because, well, things are not going particularly well for him, as we stated yesterday, right? He's kind of completely given up on 90 deals on 90 days. He's kind of given up on deals specifically. Here's unilaterally what it is that you're going to have to pay. And if you don't want that to apply before August 1st, then come to me and grovel and beg, and I'll see what I can do for you. But it seems that overall, the world has been rather unmoved by his threats. Now, I don't know if it's because he completely changes the goalpost again because there are legal decisions, against him, and people want to bide their time. Nobody really wants to go first. Whatever the decision is, in April, when he was saying that everybody was kissing his ass, that turned out to be a lie. Go figure. Because in a war, and a trade war is a war.
Oh, yes.
Right? The first victim is always truth. 2, the hot take at any time from either side is usually destined for domestic consumption. So him standing in front of the mic going, they're all kissing my ass. And you had about 190 countries in the world going, we are?
We are.
Like this. But, it's what he needs. It's what Donald Trump needs his people to hear and believe and to be spoon-fed.
It makes me think of that scene from the opening scene of The Newsroom.
Mm.
You remember that?
Mhm.
America is not the greatest country in the world anymore.
Mhm.
And then he proceeds to explain why, and all the people in the audience are in a state of shock. And I'm like, no, he's just telling you the truth, and you just don't want to hear it because you've been fed the lie that you are so star-spangled awesome your entire lives.
Yeah.
They talk about indoctrination.
Yeah.
In other countries around the world, and look what these Muslims do, and look what these do. And I'm like, yeah, and you have to cite the Pledge of Allegiance with your hand over your heart every morning in class. How is that not indoctrination?
And the Pledge of Allegiance now that includes one nation under God.
Yes. It didn't used to. That came about in, I think, sometime in the 40s or 50s or something
50s,
like
I
that.
think, yeah.
Yeah.
For some reason, I
Because
have
you remember,
1958 in my brain, but I don't know why.
might be. But the framers of the Constitution who wrote it, most of them were atheists. Which is why they said complete separation of church and state. I mean, and Thomas Jefferson was famously an atheist and proud of it. So
It was 1954 under President Eisenhower. That was
54.
added,
Okay.
under God. Wasn't that far off. I was only 4 years off.
Tom just put it in 54. There you go.
There you go. Thank you, Tom. So, yeah, it's not going well for him. He's not getting the butt kissing. His one deal with the UK is more like concepts of a deal. The thing with Vietnam, again, not entirely a full deal. And maybe he's going to get a flurry of people in the last couple of days up until then who do not want the bigger number applied to them, who will go, okay, to something, and he will tout those as deals. But those, again, are not deals because deals are things that take a long time. Like, for example, between us and the UK, even though we have this continuing agreement from the time that they were in the EU, where basically 99% of what was there, the UK wanted a free trade deal with us. The UK got up and walked away from the table at one point. But this is something Brexit happened a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
The UK looked at Canada as the first and first nation with which it would probably be able to get a free trade deal that would be the template for all the others that would follow. And why not Canada? I mean, the motherland, we have a great relationship, all that type of stuff. And we've not been able to strike a deal because of, things mainly having to do with agricultural products.
Well, I still feel bad for Scotland because they had their own referendum on separating from the UK and decided to stay. And then Brexit happened, and they're like, son of a...
They got screwed twice over.
Yeah, because they wanted to stay in the EU.
Yeah.
They wanted no part of Brexit. So they decided to stay as part of the UK. And then the UK separated from the European Union. It's like, they got screwed twice. So then they said, well, maybe we can join Canada. And we looked at it and went, it would be lovely to have you, but what are you bringing to the party? And I mean, it never got past the suggestion state. It
Right.
never got past that. There was no movement in Parliament to look at it seriously or anything like that. It was like, I think a few economists said, well, we really can't do that right now because we have to prop you up because you don't generate enough revenue to be self-sufficient. And we have problems we got to deal with amongst our provinces right now. So if you want to become a province of Canada, maybe in the future we could consider that. But right now it's not the time.
No.
And that was
Oh,
a number
no.
of years ago. I mean, today things are different, but things are different again today because of the orange tornado south of us who just shiitake short stack, I think is one of the things I've heard him called. You can read into that as what tangerine. Was it the
Tangerine tornado.
Tornado, but there was also the tangerine
Terror.
No, I'm trying to think of who was the fascist leader of Italy during World War II.
Oh, Mussolini.
Yeah,
Yes.
but they called him the Orange Mussolini.
Yes. Like that minus Trompito Citolini.
Yes. There you go. Better.
Oh man. So yeah, the trade is not really happening. So Donald Trump, in his infinite stable genius wisdom, started mulling about, and I mean he's been mentioning this off and on,
There
but
you go.
now he's talking about pharmaceutical tariffs that could
Mango Mussolini, sorry.
Mango Mussolini. Yes, exactly. There you go.
That's what it is. Thank you.
That could reach up to 200%.
Wow.
Right. And you have Guy Fialicella going here. This is going to make it really hard for Americans to get their prescriptions, especially for people with low and fixed incomes. And whenever people get desperate to get the things they need to survive, you know what fills the gap, right?
Mhm.
Organized crime.
Yes.
The black market. Drugs made in illegal labs with absolutely no quality control. This is such a bad idea. So mulling about pharmaceutical tariffs, which he's talked about a lot, but now he's saying, hey, maybe they could reach up to 200%. But the one that he dropped on the world yesterday was copper this time. And of course, because of the depth of his thinking, he said, well, I got 50% on that, and I've got 50% on steel and aluminum. So why not 50% for copper too? Just pick a number out of your ass, right? So yes, additional tariffs on copper imports, of course, as usual, didn't disclose when they will take effect because for maximum instability. Quote, today we are doing copper, Trump told reporters at a cabinet meeting. I believe the tariff on copper, we are going to make it 50%. Canadian mining companies wouldn't be especially affected because most raw copper production from Canada is exported to Asia, said Pierre Graton, head of Mining Association of Canada. And while Canadian copper refineries would be more affected, and while Canadian copper refineries would be more effective since the U.S. doesn't have enough domestic capacity, the tariffs would mean passing on more costs to U.S. buyers. Quote, so once again, President Trump is penalizing the U.S. manufacturing sector, or would be if this goes ahead, said Graton. So we're looking at this stuff and we're thinking, now listen, some of this stuff is having a very strong impact in Canada. If you're looking at the auto sector, if you're looking at the steel and aluminum sector right now, there's a lot of people that have lost jobs. It's been reported for a while now that a lot of the auto plants, there's the amount of shifts have been reduced. There are people that are suffering now. And again, I would like to reiterate my point to Prime Minister Carney, if anybody happens to be watching the show, that does seem to have some influence, that you are doing extremely well on foreign policy, extremely well at linking us together with other deals and whatnot internationally. But simultaneously to doing that, you need to tend to the domestic garden as well. And we still don't know how people are going to have increased supports beyond what EI is offering and easier access to apply to EI. And we do not know what portion, how much tariffs you've collected, and what portions have been redistributed to what sectors for what end in order to support the industries and the workers. And overall, just generally, there's been very little domestic policy. I mean, you talked during, there's a sound, Mr. Grizzly. Sorry. There's talked a lot about housing and the modular housing industry and all that kind of stuff, but there's been not a word of it really since becoming prime minister. So understandably, that July 21st is a big date, and everything's sort of circulating around that because that's the date by which our prime minister imposed a deadline to have some type of a deal or agreement with the United States, without which, or if it's not satisfactory, Canada would start imposing some counter tariffs in a proportion to where we think we are with regard to a deal. So if we found that we've made no progress whatsoever, I'm guessing 100%. If we found that we're pretty close to a deal, but not quite there yet, maybe 10, 15, who knows? But the number will sort of seem to indicate where the prime minister appears to be. Now, with all the talk as well about elbows down, this is something that he will have to do. Because
Yes.
this one, he has promised it, if he does it, if we don't get to there. So I'm not sure that the prime minister will take a big hit if there isn't a full deal, because I'm pretty much sure everybody in Canada, except for the most diehard PP stands and Make Canada Great Again people, are thinking like, okay, it's very nice that we impose this deadline, but what are the odds that we're actually going to get a deal with this guy?
Mm.
I mean, I'm not even convinced that there's a deal to be had. Right? I'm like so far on the skeptical side. It's like, why are we even bothering? There is no deal to be had, but you have to maintain appearances and you have to appear that you want to try to make a deal. And you do have to give it your best effort, even for domestic consumption. But I'm pretty sure that if he turns around and says, look, guys, I gave it my best shot, but there's just no dealing with this guy, there's a bunch of people go, yeah, that kind of tracks.
It tracks. Well, have you seen the film The Dictator? Sacha Baron Cohen film?
No, I did not see that one.
Okay, it's a great film.
Yeah.
It's very enjoyable. There's a scene where he's addressing, is it Congress or the UN? I think it was Congress. And he talks about how you should be in a dictatorship, and here's why. I can't show you the clip because we'll get nailed.
I did. I've seen that clip.
Okay. Here's the irony. That movie was like 10 or 12 years ago.
Yeah.
It's real life now. It's real life. What is happening in the United States is laid out almost verbatim in what Sacha Baron Cohen's character says in the film The Dictator. If I can find the speech, I'll put a link in the chat. We can't show it because we'll get nailed for copyright issues, but it's disturbing because that's exactly what is happening in the United States of America today. It happened to a lesser degree in the past. It's been going on for a long time, okay? It has been going on for decades. I'll go back to Reagan's era. It started then. And it's just gotten worse. And now it's as bad as everything he says in that scene. Big companies can fail and you'll bail them out. And the taxpayer can't do anything about it. TARP.
Yep. Remember that.
Yeah, under George W. And then Obama came in and he had to lend them more money. People said they're too big to fail. And there was an economist, a young man who I saw on a talk show, I can't remember which one, very tall, he must be like 6'8". And he said, let them fail. Let these car companies fail.
Mm-hmm.
What we'll do is we'll help out the employees. We're not helping out the big brass. They've got their golden handshake, golden handcuffs. They've got their golden parachutes. We'll help out the rank and file, the folks who build the vehicles. We'll help them out. We won't bail out the big car company. We'll bail out the employees. And then somebody will come along and take their place because we're still going to need automobiles. I remember a bunch of years back, Air Canada came hat in hand asking for bailout money. And I think it was at the start of COVID. And I spoke to a friend of mine who is an economist, and that's all I'll say. He's very much in the know, and he's still in touch with high-ranking government officials. We'll leave it at that. And he said point blank, let them fail. And I'm like, I agree with you. Let them fail. We'll help out the employees. Instead of bailing out Air Canada, we'll bail out the employees. And I guarantee you another company will come along to fill the place because we're still going to need a fly. We're still going to need a major carrier in this country. If Air Canada was to fail, WestJet might step up and be the next big one. Or Porter, who knows? But what I'm saying is these big companies that are too big to fail, they need to fail. And then we do the thing, instead of bailing them out, we bail out the employees. And then watch as another company comes in to fill the position, because that is what will happen.
Right. So, how's that working for the United States? And how's that working for Canada? Now, this is information that's gleaned from the Statistics Canada and other part, but inspired very much by Klaus Kellerman. If you're not checking out his videos, Klaus Kellerman POV, very, very informative stuff, very, very fact-based. It's a highly recommended follow. I think it's Kit PNC Bio, if I'm not mistaken, who turned me onto him. But he has some really good stuff. But he's talking, he took a look at some economic data that has come out, and I will bring some of that to you too, but I'm going to add a little bit more to it. Now, the first piece of data I want you to take a look at is the value of the US dollar, because we've talked a lot about treasury bonds and yields and that type of stuff. And, yields on US bonds are going up. People have to pay more in order to be able to buy a US Treasury. The US Treasury has let me rephrase that because it came out of my mouth wrong. The US government has to pay higher yields on the treasuries because it's not considered as secure an investment. I think since April or whatnot, the yield on US treasuries has gone up 0.4%. Which is a lot in a short period in the bond market in a short period of time. But when we're looking at the dollar specifically, everybody is saying, hey, well, the US dollar is going to do great, right? Because the whole premise of this was Donald Trump was saying, we're going to reduce our trade deficits and people are going to pay us. And, all these factories are going to be built here and we're going to be bringing all those jobs back here and all that extra economic activity and all that kind of stuff. Well, all right. There we go. This is the US dollar one. And this is the last 6 months.
Mm-hmm. It's been dipping, continuing to dip.
It's down 10.63%.
Since January, when Mango Mussolini took power.
Yeah. Now, if you compare that with the Canadian dollar, Kits and Cubs, Mr. Grizzly, I think you saw it on the screen there earlier, so you might have it more ready than I do. And then click on the 6 months.
Yeah, there we go. So here's where it was in January. January 8th. It's 69 cents. And today, as of this exact moment in time, it's 73 cents. So it's gone up by 4 cents, which is a big jump.
Over the last 6 months, the Canadian dollar has been up 5.16%.
Yeah, year-to-date low was 67 cents. Year-to-date high is 73.854, so almost 74 cents.
Yeah.
So it's rebounding.
So while the US dollar is going down 10% over the last 6 months, the Canadian dollar has gone up 5% over the last 6 months.
So look at this. You can see that on the screen. It's that was April 28th. Oh, March 28th, sorry. March 28th. And then we get into April, and let's go. There's April 14th. Let's get to the 28th. Come on, slowly. It's really hard to manipulate that. There's March 29th, or April 29th, the day after the election. Okay, and then it peaked, and then it dripped, but it continues to go up and down, peaks and valleys. But since the election, gone up.
Yeah. So, uh, all the talk from the conservative circles in Canada has been about how the Canadian dollar was doomed.
It doesn't seem to be the state.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem to be the state.
Yeah. So, well, along with that, then we look at U.S. debt to GDP ratios. Oops, sorry. That first thing is the Canadian dollar. Again, it's the second one that I need to get here. If we talked about this in previous shows as well, U.S. debt to GDP ratio, and we also talked about deficit to GDP ratio because they are different things and reveal different things. But with the U.S. debt to GDP ratio, and this is an interesting as it compares the U.S. debt to GDP, which if you see here is in light blue, and this goes back to 1986. So rising, you see here around 2008, it really starts to go up. That's when we had the first economic crash,
Mm-hmm.
and
In
then
87.
yeah, well, the
Oh,
87,
sorry.
yeah, the 2008 one though under
Right.
Harper,
Big
right?
one.
And then we get to COVID. Whoops,
Mm-hmm.
and it's come down. But look at the S&P 500 net debt to market cap.
Dipped early 2000s, and it's just dropped right off to nothing.
This is not good. So the S&P 500 debt is at record lows, and the U.S. government debt is near highs. That's a chart for anybody who follows this. That should be, what's the word? Slightly concerning.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
Well, I have another chart here
okay,
that you sent me, chart number 6, merchandise trade with the United States. I'll show you the graph and then show you some numbers that go along with it. So here's the graph, and this goes from 2021 till now. Exports to the U.S., it peaked at 56.9 in January of 2025, and now it's down to 41.5 as of May of 2025. Imports from the U.S. is 38.3, which is higher than it was in 2021.
but still a drop
Mm-hmm.
in recent months.
And if we go down here, you can see the numbers. So exports to the U.S., imports from the U.S. So the right column is imports. And we're always exporting more than we're importing since 2021. I mean, it's always been that way, but you can see the number changes.
Yeah, mostly oil because
Mostly oil. Yeah. And then right now it's 41.5 versus 38.3, 38.8 in April, 42, 41. It's always a difference of almost 10 points. This is the narrowest, 41.5 to 38.3.
Yeah. So what's been going on, and this is Klaus Kellerman brought this to us. The U.S. trade deficit has widened sharply in May on weak exports. Exports decreased 18.7% to $71 billion, according to the U.S. Commerce Department's Bureau of Economic Analysis. And according to Reuters, in an article dated July 3rd, this has chopped 4.16% off the U.S. GDP in Q1 alone.
Mm.
Their exports fell 4%, and their goods exports fell 5.9%. Meanwhile, in Canada, on the same day, July 3rd, Statistics Canada released this report from which Mr. Grizzly showed you a graph, and our trade deficit narrowed in May, even though our exports to the U.S. dropped to the lowest level since the pandemic.
Well, and here we have merchandise trade with countries other than the United States. So the light blue line, May, is 28.4%. That's imports from countries other than the U.S. And down here we've got exports at 19.3, the highest it's been since, when was this? 18.3. So the highest it's been since May of 2022. And if I scroll down here, you can see the numbers. So on the left column, it's exports to countries other than the U.S. and imports countries other than the U.S. You can see how this has steadily grown over the years. And as of May 2025, it's the highest it's been since, well, I don't know. I can't go back much further than 2021.
But if you go down that table, look at February 2025.
Yeah, 14.1%.
And then
March, 17.7, 18.2, 19.3.
so it's accelerating relatively quickly.
It's a big jump. And it's the imports from countries other than the U.S. has been remained relatively consistent, from 20.3 in May of 2021, 28.8. But you can see back to January of 2024, 22.5, jumped to 24 and has stayed relatively close to 24, 25. And then December 24 jumped up to 27 and has stayed in that area ever since.
And that's around the time where people were importing a lot of things before the first tariffs.
Yes, because we knew what was coming.
Yeah, to build stockpiles. So the interesting part here is that, and this is the point that Kellerman points out, is that our trade deficit narrowed, even though our exports to the US dropped to the lowest level since the pandemic. How does that happen? How do you create a situation in Canada where total merchandise exports rise by 1.1%, even though our trade with the United States is at the lowest level since the pandemic? It's, as Mr. Grizzly just pointed out, by increasing our trade with nations outside the United States. Exports to the United States decreased for a fourth consecutive month. And if you're looking year over year, end of May of last year to end of May of this year, they're down 15.7%. But our exports to nations that are not the United States reached a record high last month. And so while they're down 15.7% May to May with the United States, they're up 23% with Japan, up 46.5% with Germany, up 302% with the UK, up 5% with South Korea, up 87.5% with the Netherlands, and up 102.4% with Italy. The changes, the reorientation of our trade seems to be happening way more quickly than a lot of people thought that it could.
Indeed.
It seems that both throughout Europe and other nations, whatnot, they have all sort of almost realized at the same time, okay, this guy is trying to screw us over. Yeah, you know what? Those blades for those wind generating. I can't remember what they're called now. All of a
Windmills?
sudden, windmills.
Wind generating mills?
Yeah, I'm thinking it in. I have the word in French, right? Éolier, and it's not turbines. There we go. The blades for the wind turbines. All of these were going to go to the United States, but they're going to charge 35% more now. So, Canada, do you have any wind projects that would need some blades? Yeah. Okay. Well, we happen to have some right here. You don't have to wait an extra year to have them. Would you like to take them off our hands now? Sure. We'll take that. And there's been a whole bunch of this type of trade that's just redirected very, very, very quickly. A lot of people thought that there would be like, wind down and lag time. No, people have just turned around and it's like, yeah, we're not sending that anymore. Any takers? Yeah, we'll take it. Okay, done. And that's how fast these deals have been being made. People are not messing around here. It's very similar in Europe to when Russia tried to corner all of Europe by changing the way that it was going to export its gas. And everybody said, oh my God, Europe is not going to be able to get through this winter. And it reoriented super damn quick. And all of a sudden, there's not as much demand for Russian LNG in Europe anymore. And all of a sudden, there's all these projects, additional green projects, green energy projects that got accelerated and got moved up in order to compensate for what's not going to be there anymore. Somebody thought, oh my God, what are we going to do without like this? Well, it's like, okay, well, you don't want to give it to us anymore, or you don't want to sell it to us at a good price anymore? Fine, we'll adapt. Boom. And they did. Because necessity is the mother of invention. It's incredible how creative people can be when you pull the rug out from under them all of a sudden.
I was trying to show you something, but Lola's not. Oh, now she's coming. Come here. Come on up. Come on up. She has a new scarf. See it.
Ooh, the sand scarf.
Thanks to Cassie.
Ah, thank you, Kit Cassie. That's so lovely.
Oh, sweet girl. Okay.
Aw.
We'll go in a minute, Lola. Don't worry. We'll go in a minute. Begging to go out, so. Okay, sweetheart. Thank you.
So yeah, just wanted to bring you that information because again, you're going to hear a lot of conservatives scream and jump up and down. It's doom and things are going terrible, and we're gonna. Well, so far, knock wood, things in Canada, even though there is disruption, and even though there are some people, like I said, in some key sectors, this auto manufacturing, steel, aluminum, that are suffering, and Trump is going to try to come after lumber and all the other type of stuff and
Of
try to spread
course.
the pain around and all of that kind of stuff. Overall, the overall economy is holding up rather well. Trade diversification is happening at a speed that a lot of people did not think was going to be possible and seems to be working. Now, again, a lot of this might be low-hanging fruit, and there might be a lull to come at some point. But for now, things are doing well. The dollar's doing well. The United States, that wanted to reduce their trade deficits by taking all of this action, are actually widening them. And by, as Trump said, by a lot, as Trump would say, at some point, people down south are going to catch on. People that bankroll this guy are going to catch on that the plan is not working. And Michael Dieter had a video might look like at some point.
Canadian beaver on a couch, eating some chips. Is it chips he's eating? I can't quite
Lay's.
tell from that. Eating some Lay's chips and passing a blunt to Uncle Sam. You need this more than me.
Uncle Sam's grabbing his head and seeing all these newspapers on the floor with Trump, going, oh my God. I love Michael. Michael Dieter and Theo Moudakis, I tell you. They tickle my funny bone.
I have to take off because Ms. Lola really wants to go out. Before I do, I wanted to let everybody know that it looks like I'll be starting my new job on Monday.
Oh, I thought it wasn't before the 19th.
Well, I did get a notification yesterday that the contract has been received. They're just going over the fine tooth. We're going over it with a fine-tooth comb. They'll send me a copy to sign off, and I may be starting on Monday. I haven't been given the go yet, but they're like, would you be able to? They asked if I was prepared to start on Monday. I said, yeah, I can make arrangements. I can start on Monday if you need me to. So, yeah, it might be starting Monday, and what that means right now, I don't know. If I start Monday, I don't know what that means for my contribution to the show in the morning. I will find out once we know where I'll be working, because I still have, that remains to be seen. I have an idea of where it is, and I think I can still make this, do a 7 to 7:30 thing every day, but it remains to be seen. I have to readjust things, of course, and readjust my schedule so I can get Lola out earlier in the morning, because I won't be able to take her out after the show if I'm on a bus or a train. But either way, I will be seeing some changes soon.
Okay.
For the good. For the
We'll
good.
figure it out. Look at him. He is changing.
So I need to share two things here quickly before I go. This is a political cartoon I saw, which seems to make perfect sense right now with what's taking place in Texas in Kerr County. People yelling, government is the problem, not the solution, drowning and yelling help. They're swept away. That's the first thing I want to share. The second thing I want to share is this. Where did it go? Oh, I lost it. Crap. Oh, here it is. This is an example of the sheer audacity of the Trump administration and their absolute hatred towards their own people. This is Kristi Noem and what she had to say, and then I'll follow up with this quickly.
Matters a lot. I'm extremely grateful for God's hand in that whole situation, because hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people were saved. And this is a time for all of us in this country to remember that we were created to serve each other.
Okay, I'm going to stop her right there. Created to serve one another. And again, this is the response which I thought was just this is the response from Grok. Somebody said to Grok, is it good to rely upon God for this? And Grok's response is, well, if we're talking prevention, NOAA science and data have proven track record of saving lives through warnings and prep. God's great for moral support, but relying solely on prayer for floods is like betting on miracles over meteorology. Risky business, Christy. And why did that flood happen and nobody get a warning? Because DOGE cut the NOAA and the National Weather Service.
Mm-hmm.
And this horrible person says, I'd like to thank God and his great hand for saving hundreds. Maybe if you did your job, like you said, we're here to help each other. Maybe if you did your job and didn't cut the NOAA and the NWS, many people, maybe nobody would have died. There's over 100 dead already. Maybe nobody would have died if you actually had done your goddamn job, you stupid.
Yep. And you will notice the communications framing there, talking about those who have been saved, but without drawing any attention to the counterfactual, to the greater number that were lost that should not have been.
There was no need. Completely needless. Should not have happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, of course, did the warnings go out on time? There is, reporting saying that there was weather reports saying that there was going to be an inordinate amount of rain. I don't know if they said it was going to be that bad. There was a warning apparently that was issued at 1:14 in the morning, but a lot of people are sleeping. I don't know how much preparation was done during the day to say, like this, you might have a warning be coming late at night, sleep with one eye open or something like I just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Right. In terms of that, there's a lot of people that say that even though the warning was issued at 1 something, did not get the warning until well after 4
right.
When it hit. So however it is, right. But after all of this has been done, it seems that the Trump administration was asked whether or not they would rehire some of these people from the National Weather Service, and no. And the answer was no.
So we're up to 170 still missing. Thoughts and prayers is just American slang for tough shit.
Yeah.
I mean,
see you, wouldn't want to be you, or sucks to be you.
Yeah.
So sad that happened to you. Anyway.
Yeah.
Seems to be.
Basically.
Seems to be.
All right. I do have to go. So just want to say thanks for everybody for coming out today. I appreciate you. Lola really needs to go. So I'm going to vamoose, and I will see you all very soon. Until such time as we meet again. Take care.
Yeah. Thank you, my friend. So there. I've seen something from Kid James here going, so I wrecked the Camaro. I hope everything's, okay, if the Camaro's wrecked, the Camaro's not fine, but I hope that people are fine and all of that. That's some pretty frightening news. Because we had a car accident in our family last summer, and the car was wrecked, and there was a financial hit, and psychologically, emotionally, there was some disruption, but fortunately, physically, everyone was fine. But so I'm hoping that it isn't too damaging to members of your family, Kit James. So there you go. Wow. So that's some big news. Couple little things before we have to go today. Again, there was some reports yesterday. We'll hopefully have more time to talk about this on another day. We're starting to talk about some of the cuts that will have to come to the federal government to pay for all this increased spending. Now, of course, Prime Minister Carney is talking about dividing the budget in terms of operational spending and capital spending, so that the capital spending, when we look at what it contributes to the deficit, because we probably will have increasing deficits overall, because we're boosting, we're getting to 2% of GDP on defense in this fiscal year, and then eventually we're going to get to 5% over the next 10 years, assuming that we meet all the way, but at least we're going to be doing something for the first 5 years until we get to that review to see whether or not 5% is still necessary or needed, or if we need to make any other adjustments. And the Prime Minister has said that he would look to cut operational spending from increases in operational spending year over year from 9% down to 2%, and would looking to do it relatively quickly. So that's the whole spend less on itself, spend government spending on itself, or the way that they're trying to describe it, in order to be able to free up more money to invest, to spend on nation building. Doesn't mean that we're going to have lower deficits. That was a clever way of actually hiding during the campaign that deficits are actually going to be higher if we're going to be doing all of this capital spending. But the Conservatives will want you to not notice or not factor in what it is that we're spending it on. So the Conservatives are just going to look at all spending. They're going to look at the number of deficit and say, "Oh my God, we're going to hell in a handbasket, and all this is inflationary," and not want you to consider, well, yes, but it's like we're not spending to bring the family of 5 on a 2-week luxurious vacation to Mexico for 3 weeks. We're spending on buying a house. So Pierre Poilievre is going to talk to you about these capital spending that we're doing in order to make the country stronger and to better diversify our trade, as he would talk to you if you were taking out a mortgage and say, "Well, wait a minute, you can't buy that house cash. You're going to have to borrow." Well, that's inflationary and that's totally irresponsible. And it's like, no, if you're going to borrow to buy a house, that's a good thing. It's an investment that will increase over time, we hope. Right? And it's an investment that you're going to hold for a while, if you're not buying and flipping, we hope. Right? And it's to own your place of residence rather than just rent is a wise investment, we have always been told. So what you spend your money on does matter. Right? And then the other thing that matters is debt to GDP ratio. Are you able to service that debt? So long as you're growing the economy in such a way that you're able to service the debt, and the debt that you are acquiring are for things that are going to generate more economic activity and revenue, that shouldn't be a problem. In theory, if you get the balance right, and you're hoping that as a banker, that Mark Carney would have the skills to get the balance right in terms of what quantity we put in each at what time. But he is looking for some savings within the federal government, and within a relatively short period of time. He's asked everybody in every department that if you have to single out 3 priorities that they would like to do, but figure out how they're going to pay for them with existing funds. So that could lead kits and cubs to some interesting choices being made. And of course, as we mentioned, with the domestic policy elements not really having been thought of or mentioned a lot over the last little while. When these numbers collide, this could create some opportunities. And again, I don't think that the Conservatives are going to scream too much about it. I mean, they are going to scream on affordability, stuff like this, because they do it all the time. Oh my God, look how terrible the thing is. But it's not like they actually have a solution or have any intention of wanting to fix it, because they like it when people suffer and they don't want to fund big social programs. Right? So they'll complain about how terrible it is that Mark Carney is doing this, but they're not really there to help you. And if we actually did have a functioning NDP at the moment, well, this would be a great terrain for it. But of course, the party has other issues, and they're talking about a leadership race coming on and all that type of stuff. So they are not dedicating their full attention to this. But federal ministers have been asked to be fined 7.5% savings for the 2026-2027 fiscal year that begins on April 1st, 2026, followed by 10% in 2027-2028 and 15% in 2028-2029 in an effort to find long-term savings, a promise that Mark Carney made during the election campaign. Now, of course, you have the unions, the Public Service Alliance of Canada, stating, and this is Sharon D'Souza, the president of the Public Service Alliance of Canada, saying, "I'm very concerned by this announcement. The Prime Minister promised caps and not cuts, and it definitely feels like the public service workers are going to be bearing the brunt of this." Now, of course, the Prime Minister says that with public service, a lot of the cuts are going to happen through attrition, and then he's probably looking at adding more AI where it can that would replace certain jobs, but he's also talking about moving people from certain places to other places. Like, for example, since we're going to be doing much more defense procurement, that's probably going to be needed to be staffed more. And there's a lot of people that are working jobs that might be able to be automated, that might be able to be moved to other jobs where they would be able to contribute some value added. Hopefully, um, I'm not sure how much of this can be done with caps and cuts. There's another person who used to be part of Stephen Harper's government who mentioned on one of the political shows, Power and Politics, the other day that Stephen Harper, for all his cuts that he wanted to do, was able to find about $2 billion within the public service and stuff that he could cut. And apparently that in itself was a Herculean task. So 7.5 for not this current year, but for the next fiscal year to come, that's a short amount of time to find that much in savings. Now, again, it's not specified whether 7.5% is what he is going to cut, or he wants people to identify savings of up to 7.5% from which they will choose. Also, it's not stated whether or not everyone is obligated to come up with 3 priorities, or if it's just a maximum of 3. It could lead to one department to say, well, you know what, we only have one priority, and it will be this one because we don't want to cut as much to fund more. How this will manifest itself when it comes to be has yet to be determined. It's still pretty um, flou, as they say in French, fuzzy. But hopefully we will get more information over time, and the work it will be a collaborative effort with the public service and other groups in order to be able to do that. One of the ways that they're looking at cutting costs as well would be in terms of maybe reducing the amount of consulting, but that might require, again, to bring more of that capacity in-house, which could be some of the other jobs that get moved away from automation, get moved to that in-house capacity to do what it is that we're hiring consultants for at the moment. So there's lots of opportunities. It's just whether or not there is that amount worth in that amount of time. That's where a lot of people are a little more skeptical. And finally, kids and cubs. When it comes, this is just a quick little thing from us, but when it comes to the measles outbreaks that have been happening in Ontario and Alberta, unfortunately, kits and cubs, it seems that, well, we are literally the measles capital. The United States has reported the highest number of cases of measles this year than any other since 2000, when the disease was declared eliminated, according to data from the Center for Outreach, Response, and Innovation at Johns Hopkins. The United States has surpassed more than 1,200 cases in 36 states and the District of Columbia. The previous high was reached in 2019. The largest outbreak is in Texas, which has reported 753 cases this year, though they are currently on the decline. Throughout the United States, 155 people have been hospitalized and 3 have died. Now, if we compare and contrast to Alberta and Ontario, who the Premier of Ontario is on yet another big vacation, the Premier of Alberta is focused on separation. They were both together backslapping each other at the Stampede. Well, in Alberta, as of July 4th, 2025, were reported 1,149 confirmed cases of the measles, according to a post on X from July 4th. And as of June 14th, 2025, 85 Albertans have been hospitalized due to measles, including 14 intensive care unit admissions. No measles-related deaths have been reported in Alberta, but there have been fewer than 5 cases of congenital measles in Alberta. In Ontario, as of June 6, 2025, were reported 2,009 confirmed measles cases associated with the ongoing outbreak. Specific data on measles-related hospitalizations in Ontario was not provided. There's 1 measles-related death reported in Ontario in 2025 involving a premature baby born with congenital measles to an unimmunized mother, as we have reported there. But yes, while in the United States there's 1,200 cases for the entire United States, there are now more than that in Alberta, and there are even more than that in Ontario. So both of these premiers are doing a lot of things and flapping their arms and moving a lot of wind, but They're not taking care of issues at home. It's not like there isn't any work to do, so it would be really nice if they would get on that. All right, kids and cubs, that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. And when you share some of our content with some words of your own, that means the world to us, and it definitely increases the odds that people see it. If you would like to not miss an episode because you're on the go, well, thanks to the Ray Girl, you don't have to. If you scan that QR code, it will bring you to our pod page. That's podpage.com/the-true-north-eager-beaver with a hyphen between each one of those words. And when you click subscribe, when we have something fresh off the bandwidth, hey, it comes directly to you. And if you can give us stars and reviews on our podcasts, that would be great. If you'd like to help us in other ways, Kits, Cassie, and Elaine are beckoning you to surf on down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page, where 19,700 of you have so far, getting closer to that 20,000. Click on our buttons, like, share, and subscribe. Makes us happy when you do, and it also helps with the algorithm. If you would like to support us in other ways, kids and cubs, a generous donation or enthusiastic expression of encouragement made to the Eager Beaver Lodge Emergency Hydration Fund, where every day we fight the scourge that is dry beaver. Yum, yum. Very refreshing to keep your beaver moist. So if you would like to contribute to doing that, hey, give us a little visit on our coffee page. If you just scan that QR code or go to ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, all in one word, leave a little something. When the coins hit the bottom of the jar, it makes us so happy. And if you would like to make sure that your transaction is entirely Canadian and bypass the CE Tech Bros, just send a direct donation or bank transfer to truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com. That's the same address that you can send us your thoughts about the show. Good, bad, or ugly, guest suggestions, all of it. We like to hear from you. So please write to us. And if you want to reach us on our socials, at True Eager, at the Blue Sky Beaver Lodge, on the Jitter is where you go. You also can go to True North Eager Beaver on Facebook, our original home. And if you're watching on Facebook live with the DAMFAM or on your own time, right here in the comments section. We're not able to read everything, but we are able to read everything, but we're not able to write back to you on everything. And everything that you send us as a donation or as a comment gets put back into the show in order to improve it. And we thank you so much for your contribution. Because democracy is something that you do. Again, My PC Alberta is the place where you would go if you're an Albertan, if you want to have the Alberta PC Party officially be registered with Elections Canada, Elections Alberta, I should say, sorry. They're looking for just under 9,000 signatures for that. So please do that because Albertans deserve more choices and more options, and that is the way to get it. So please do that. Words of wisdom, kids and cubs. I'm just going to say, yesterday, I treated myself to some chocolate cake, and it felt really good and made my day. So whatever it is that your version of chocolate cake is, make your mouth and your tummy a little happy today, and treat yourself to something that makes you smile as you eat it. That's my words of wisdom today. Kids, it could be a tough world out there, so please be kind to and gentle with yourself. And now, if you would like to indulge me with a little audience participation, kids and cubs, at the count of 3, can I have a Mr. Beaver please cue the cock? On 1, 2, 3. Oh, yes, yes, such beautiful harmony, such beautiful synchronicity. I think I can do this for you. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music.